Hi, my name is Bitters, and today we're going to teach you how to draw perspective and paws. Okay, so one of the ways that you can it's not a cheat, it's a tip. It's a tip. A perspective tip is to, and you might have seen this float around, it is called a piece of paper for a face, I guess. And this was started for artists who were drawing human features, but it does work for animals. And of course, furries. So it just is a little different. And you might have seen this, but I'll just demonstrate it because it is a nice little trick you can use. So what you need to do is draw, say, a piece of paper. And before you apply this in any drawing you do for a final form, you really want to practice being able to draw these pieces of papers, because you have to get the perspective right on them. Now, in order to do that, you have to be able to draw a square, or rectangle in this case, in perspective. So if it's lying flat, you can draw it like this, right? So you have to be able to do that, and also curve it, because the face isn't flat. And it takes a few tries. And don't be worried about getting it perfect on the first sketch. Okay, so assuming that's what you want. You always draw a line on the middle to designate the center of the features. The middle of the paper, by the way. So if you're drawing your perspective like this, and say this is shaded, this is the middle, right? On the back. Anyway. So after that, and this is how you know it's done with human faces first, but see how that's a human face? We're not going to draw that entirely, but that's the first start of it. So let's do this with furry features. So you come out of the center with your nose, and it doesn't have to be perfect the first chunk out of it. A lot of people draw with squares, and that's fine to do it this one, this kind of trick. Draw the inner eye to designate where the eyebrow is. Line up the nostril with the base of the eye, like in the last tutorial. Same thing with the mouth. And then this designates the jawline, where the edge of the paper is. And then you can just form around it. And this isn't something I use, but I wanted to show it as a little neat trick if you're having problems with figuring out where to put your facial features in a perspective that maybe you're not used to. And this isn't something that I would use on a final drawing. I would sketch, if you're having trouble with the pose, like say a pose that faces up, right? So it's going this way. You can figure it out before you put it on your main drawing. This is like a study tool, right? Something to help you learn. Okay, so paws. Paws, Pete's, beans. Everybody loves them. Not everybody knows how to draw them. So first off, we're gonna do a canine paw because, let's be honest, most furries have canine personas. So, all right, so I'm first going to explain the bottom of a normal canine paw. And this is, of course, generalizing between different species, but we'll just, all right, this is how you draw the bottom of a canine paw. So you have your center line, and then an X between it. All right, and this is just an easy way to figure out how paw placement is basically done. So you draw the first two beans and the first two of this circle center, like here. And you want to make them the same size, and you're, this might not be perfect size, so use your best judgment. And then you want to do these a little smaller and thinner, like this. Okay. And then circle here, circle here, circle here, very light, not official circles. And then you have your basic paw, right? That's just the easy trick of how to draw your basic paws. All right, and then you add, little claws here. Actually, very stylized sort of bottom of a paw. So I'm gonna break this down. So basically you have your toe pads here, right? You've seen dog paws, you know what they look like. And then the center pad is almost like a triangle but rounded out. And what I basically do, which you probably saw here, is draw 3 circles all touching each other, and then just smooth out the outsides. And you have your basic center paw. So that's the bottom. Now if you're drawing it from the top, say you're looking at a foot paw, what I do, and this is assuming you've drawn the rest of the form, because you always want the weight to be in between here with most how furries are drawing. But a canine paw has realistically bones that come up here and then down, right? And so they're kind of like a gnarled thing when you're looking at it, at the proper anatomy, right? But what this does is when you draw it, it makes it look like the weight isn't evenly distributed, because let's face it, when you're talking about a furry, they don't exist, right? So you have to mix a human capability of being able to stand on 2 legs, and then, of course, the coolness of a dog paw, right? So what you want to do, and this is just an easy, quick way that I do, is you draw these kind of simple shapes that you elaborate on as you go along. So simple shapes, you got a triangle, off another triangle, and putting into the foot. So you could do this, like that. See what I did? This is like the knuckle of the paw, right? This is the claw, this is the paw pad here, and this is the bottom pad, and that goes up the foot. Like that. And you get your basic structure. But yeah, try again, triangle, whoop, whoop. And then you just do the same for others. All right, so that's an easy way to understand how to break it down. And then of course after that you start adding in your details. And this is kind of like a little trick, but when you see a dog resting on its foot, you don't see the paw pads. The same with cats or anything else. You usually don't see them. But because we like to draw them, an easy way to do it is to just, wherever the claw comes out, you just do a smooth line to the bottom, just like that. And there you go. You have some paw pads sticking out. I usually don't draw the pad here, but sometimes I do. And that's basically, you just do a little bit, not a lot, just enough to know that it's there. Add some fuzz. There you go. And from the front, I kind of touched on this on the other tutorial video, but from the front, what you want to do is kind of do this half circle slash angular thing. Separate it down the middle, and then here. And I actually go from the bottom first because it just helps me figure out the shape more, right? So, in the perspective. And then the same thing, the nails designate center. And then with this, again, the paw pads, all you have to do, make that little half shape there. Just to give it some flair, you know, just a detail. And I'll clean up a little bit so you can kind of see. And then what I do is I'll find the center of these two beans. That's where I find where I want to put the rest of the foot, so to speak. And this is the center. Hands are hard. I think any artist in any field can tell you that most people have challenges with hands. Even I have challenges with hands sometimes, so I have to like look back from the basics and start from there. What I'm going to show you today is what I call the werewolf style hand. It's kind of a very heavily, I want to say cartoony, but very animalistic kind of style of a hand. So with any hand, I'll show you the hand, human or non, you have this basic kind of meatiness, most of it being shown in the thumb. And then this is our paw pad right here and here. So you have these basic features. And what you want to do when you're drawing this kind of werewolf style is accentuate this big meaty kind of thing going on. So you have this palm, and then I'll just do this for the sake of clarity. So those are your finger bases, right? So what I do with a werewolf style thumb is I'll actually remove one of the digits and just make this one really big, and then add a big meaty claw on it. And then draw the bones of the wrist here. And you can kind of fudge anatomy on this, right? So it doesn't have to be, I mean, werewolves don't exist, right? But you want to make it look like it can exist. So you want to use some of the same throwbacks to anatomy that you would recognize. So you want to have, you know, middle finger longer than the others, just a little bit. And you'll notice in fingers too, these two line up almost all the time. Everybody's hands can be different, but generally speaking, when you're talking about anatomy, you want to have a generalized view. I'm gonna add some paw pads because, you know, werewolves. And then some people, I'm actually gonna push this a little further. Never feel afraid to change, especially on hands where your lines are. If you get it right on the first time, good, but you know, don't expect it every time. All right. And this is how I draw kind of a mix of anatomy and styles. Just a little hint. Of humanity. You can draw paw pads here too. I don't tend to draw that on my drawings because I think it just overcomplicates what I'm trying to go for. But you can do it. If you like it, go for it. Paw hand. Let's see. Let's draw from a different perspective. So when you're drawing a hand from, let's say, this perspective, you recognize that this is like a long rectangle in, you know, three-dimensional format. So you can use that and make obviously thicker in this case because it's a werewolf hand. And then you add your thumb base, which is the big meaty part. And then the fingers. Don't forget that the wrist really defines the rest of the hand. And wrists, as you can see, they have a little dip here and a dip here. And you want to pay attention to how that rotates, right? And so here's a good example. It dips here and you can see it turning. My arm doesn't really turn, but you can see it denotes the rest of the hand. So wherever the wrist is going to turn is how you draw the rest of your form. Anyway, big meaty paws. And basically you just want to apply what you learned with foot paws into how you draw hand paws. You want to have a good mix of both to make this meaty arm here, right? You want to have it balanced. So when you have a hand, you don't always see the rest of the fingers. That's another kind of tip that's useful, is you don't want to overcomplicate a hand. And it's kind of a brain warp because you think a hand, oh, it's complicated, oh, it's hard. And then you get in your head that you have to really figure out every single line on a hand, where each finger is and where each bone is. But if you look at a hand in a relaxed format, oftentimes you can't see every digit, you can't see every bone. So that's something that you really want to look for references on. Or just look at your hands. Yeah, big meaty paws. Draw big ones. Basically, when you draw paws like this, you want to really accentuate the style, right? You really want to make this paw look really paw-like. You want it to be, well, that's definitely a big claw kind of thing on this paw. And you can make it as outlandish as you want. I've seen some really cool hands from different artists that is like just giant paws, and that's fun. And you can even mess with the anatomy, give it 3 fingers instead of 4. That's just my own personal style, is 4. Push your brain, you know, really experiment and find that what you want in your drawing. If you want big meaty paws, you go for it. Add that animalistic quality to your art. You can see even here I can use the X to figure out and adapt these paw pads. And let's make something in between. That's the great thing about furries, is that you can make something completely new. And again, that wrist. Another thing when you're drawing hands, and this can be any animal or human or otherwise, is this little line in the middle. You don't always have to draw it. Sometimes it doesn't need to be that obvious, but it can help you figure out your center line in a drawing. See? There you go. Different sort of paw. That's 3 fingers. So now we're going to apply both perspective and paws, and we're going to do a quick drawing. So, paper trick, you know, use it to practice your perspectives. I'm going to do it the old-fashioned way that I'm used to, because I'm good on the practice most of the time. I always practice, but today, you know, you're practicing, not me. Anyway. I'm gonna start off with a bolstereth boy, doing some action. And using the other tutorial we did, I'm gonna emphasize again, nostril, mouth. That's how you line up the eye. Or the rest of the face, whichever you start with. Someday we'll do a teeth episode, but for now, a little let's do a regular old canine. Some big fluffy ears. Go a little ham on his hair. He's real rowdy. Alright. That way you know, sometimes I like to start with an expression because the rest of the body kind of falls into that expression, right? Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and draw where the rib cage is, like in the last one. And we're only going to do like a thigh up sort of thing because we're going to focus on hand paws. Alright, so one trick, I'll just give this little tip here. Whenever you're placing arms, you find your shoulder, right? Let's go ahead and get those in here, and where you want the wrist to be. The wrist, okay, remember it's the wrist, not the hand, but the wrist. So you gotta think of where you want the hand to be, but how the wrist forms it. You draw a straight line from that to the center of the shoulder. And then from that center, you can find your elbow. You may have to adjust depending on how you've drawn the rest of the form, but that gives you an idea of where you want the rest of the pose to be and how to place your elbow. And that's just a little proportion trick. And I'll probably adjust this as I go on because I'm seeing some issues with the body here. There we go, to the pectorals. And do the same thing with the other side. And just as a pro tip, I was talking about this earlier, but it's easy for me to do accurate proportions if I make the character muscular. It's kind of like a little trick I've kind of just found out over the years is it's easier to see what's wrong with anatomy if you can see the anatomy, you know what I mean? So oftentimes it's an easy way to figure out what's wrong with a character too. If you just draw the rest of the muscles. And see? And now I can figure out what I need to fix. Not to say that every character you should have should be muscular. That's, you know, not how it is. But I find that if I'm having trouble with a form, I can add more muscle to the form and figure out what's wrong. So a lot of times when I'm starting off with hands, I'll just draw the rectangle base, right? And then draw it in perspective. And that'll kind of tell me where I need to have my fingers and thumbs and all that. Bendy straw. And as a tip, whenever you have a character holding something, draw the object that they're holding before you draw the hand. That's the same thing with backgrounds as well. If you have a place that they need to be, draw the place first, because then you can put that form in there. Okay, come back to that. I'm gonna make this guy some shorts. Clothing is another fun thing to draw. That's just look at clothing and see how it looks. There you go, that's your tip. See, the forearm is actually too long. Wrists, you can break down into 2 circles, and that kind of, I don't know, it helps me figure out how the wrist is, because that's kind of how it looks in a bone format. Alright, so we're going to have him, he's going to be a finger gun guy, because he's rowdy. So whenever you draw folded fingers, you know, I like to, I don't know, make it a little bit more dramatic, I guess. So feel free to play with it. Whenever you have something folded like a hand, the pinky finger, or the smallest finger, is the furthest down the palm, because that's just how the shape of the bones work, right? This is the longest finger, but it's the shortest on this form. I wanted to point that out. I see it as a common mistake in a lot of art, so I just wanted to. And redraw this. I have a tendency sometimes, and this is to make the thumb a bit too big on the first draw. Or even the second. If I can draw it. This hand's a little bit too big for this character. I'm not gonna lie. So we're gonna change it. Downsize it. It's kind of a loose, sketchy hand. Alright. Gestural forms. Get rid of that line. Draw list. Here. Sometimes you gotta change other things in the drawing to make the pose work. I'll make it a little more action. He's gonna have a leg up here and then one back here. Also pay attention to where the shoulder is. Even when you're doing the thigh up, if you want the pose to look balanced, line it up with the shoulders, even with thighs. Trust me, it'll help. He's got cut off jean shorts because, I don't know, why not? Pointy boy, sketch form. Ta-da! Okay. There we go.
A special shout out to all my amazing patrons, starting with my superfans tier. We have Diana DePry, Lazy Trash Panda, Beastly Drohan, Wolf Rider, Billy Daxter, Elliot Excel, and Cutter. Next we have my fans tier with Sky Draco, Bear Seneth, Dan Fox TX, Nova Halvern, and Solace the Wolf. And finally we have my early access tier with Elixir, Cosmo, Scaleth, Shadowfaxy, Tyler Furlong, Tara Linus, Talijah, Edith Everett, Cockernell, Katie Rose, Runes and Kaz, Samantha Sawyer, and Mitsukatsa Wild Rose. Thank you all so much for your support.